Welcome back, everybody. This, as you can believe it or not, week 2 with Confluence of Worlds, hosted by Bryan Rector. And in week 1, which actually was 2 weeks ago, we had a conversation with Michigan State volleyball standout Julia Bishop, who had a ton of nuggets and wisdom to speak on. This week, though, we've gone in a little bit of a different direction, and I'll introduce my guy here in a second. But this week, we certainly wanted to have a hard-hitting episode that had a lot of new elements than we did last week. So we're going to break down some similar things regarding kind of where my man came from, where his faith came from, how he's using his platform here today at Michigan State. But as well, I kind of want to go into some of his past experiences of, spreading the gospel and how kind of he's been active in his faith, even going back for years and years. So I think it's going to be a really great show today. And without further ado, I'll mention my guy, Jonathan Stout, who is a part of Michigan State men's soccer. They still are on an undefeated streak this season, and that's incredible to acknowledge. And I'm super happy, super proud of you guys for what you're doing, how you're representing the university. But tell me about, what your kind of understanding was of our show and why you wanted to come by.
I just had a friend of mine that was a friend of Bryan's and just asked me if I wanted to get together, do a podcast. I was like, oh, shoot, let's do it. Had to do with faith and sport, and it's like, yeah, I'd love to. I like talking to people. Put a camera in front of me. I'll say whatever you want me to say.
Hey, that's all good. That's all good.
I'm excited.
Yes, sir. Our close friend that we both have, I'll just give a quick shout out to my man, Jaden Loy. That dude is the bomb for putting me in touch with this man, Jonathan. And dude, everything I've heard about you is just that you're so solid and rooted in your faith. And I've been able, fortunately, as I mentioned last week, being a part of Spartan Vision and Big Ten, to see you in your element, grinding on the field. And I just knew, the first time that I saw you in action and acknowledged who you were was the Indiana game a few weeks ago, where you guys had a big time win in one that, was, I won't by any means say unexpected, but was, warranted and really appreciated for you guys after kind of having a cold streak, I understand, against them. But what did that mean, that night to have beaten them, and kind of gotten the monkey off your back?
I would say that it solidified our team a bit more, where it's like we're having a good season, we're winning some games, but they're against okay teams, and we haven't gotten beaten yet, but we haven't played any of the powerhouse teams yet. And so Indiana was a very real test. One, Big Ten play is starting, so now we're trying to, if we want to win the Big Ten, that's a game we need to win. And yeah, I think it was since 2013 we hadn't beaten Indiana at home. And so it's been a super long time. And so I think just actually being able to beat them just proved to ourselves and other people that we're legit this year and that we're winning games and we're a serious team to go against. Yeah.
I know it was kind of like we said, with Jaden connecting us, and then with the next night, literally, I know that I'm on the call for the Indiana game, and so I go, we can connect, And what I wanted to ask you about is, just before we even get into any, part of our show here, the nitty gritty of it, is that I interviewed Sean Kerrigan after the game.
Yeah.
And Sean said for Big Ten Plus. And Sean gave a whole ton of the credit of that win to you. And I just want to let you know that, and let you know that it impressed me how well connected you guys are, and how willing he was to say, hey man, that's on all of us, but that's on my man Stout too. So
yeah, that's generous of him. He's such a great guy, but I drew the penalty, so we were tied 1-1. I drew a penalty, and that he took the penalty to score, and we beat him 2-1. But you've got to have some guts to take a PK with 12 minutes left against Indiana in front of 2,500 fans and whatnot. I wasn't ready to step up in that moment, and so thank goodness for Sean for being willing to do that.
Man.
Yeah.
And first off, I really appreciate you kind of explaining the background to what happened there. But also, it's like, wasn't Indiana in the national championship, the Collegiate Cup last year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Indiana, I mean, I think they've made it to the Final Four like 40% of the years in the last 40 years. So like they go to the Final Four all the time. They've won 8 national championships in the last 40 years, I think.
Oh my goodness.
So they're winning it every 5 years or so. And so, but the crazy thing is, like, even last year they finished 5th in the Big Ten, and then they finished 2nd in the country in the tournament.
Wow.
And so it's like our Michigan State team, we weren't that great last year, if we're being honest, but we tied Indiana, and we were close to finishing above them in the Big Ten, but they just turn it on in the tournament and win games. And so, yeah, they didn't have that great of a season, but made it to the national championship and almost won as well. Like, they were inches away. They went to a penalty shootout against Syracuse and ended up losing on like the 7th PK. So, yeah, it's crazy how that works.
Yeah. And I can totally understand how you guys embrace that, as a quality win, and how you're looking to move forward in that sense too, after having one that's so big, given everything they've done. But let's get into it, because we have a whole ton of things to cover.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited to be sitting here. But as you guys know, Confluence of Worlds is about the intersection of faith as well as athletics. And there's a little bit of the NIL piece too, which I'm interested to hear your take on later on in the show. But I think, what's super key to acknowledge is that you are somebody who's absolutely comfortable with professing his faith publicly, and have been, right, by my understanding. And so, firstly, I was wondering if you could share with our listeners, where did your faith come from? How was it growing up? Because I know you're from Grand Rapids area, went to high school in Wyoming. I was wondering, talk about your family, your upbringing, and kind of where you're coming from, just so guys listening understand a little bit more about you.
Yeah. I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and my parents are both super solid, strong Christians, and so I was raised in that, really. I grew up going to church, obviously, then, and I went to a Christian middle school and high school, and so all throughout, I'm learning about God and what it means to be Christian and all of that. But I would say that for most of that time, I wasn't necessarily excited to go to church, excited to think about Jesus and do things for God or anything like that. That was all kind of just my parents telling me to do it, so I guess I'll do it if they're gonna make me. And that was still going into high school. We would go on some class trips and whatnot, and so I'd go on a weekend retreat or a week-long class trip, and by the end of the trip, I'm like, man, I want to really grow my relationship with God and be different and be better. And then a week or so later, months later, it's just right back to the same of saying I'm Christian and being believing that God exists, but not really thinking that he's active in my life, and not really changing too much of the way I live. If I was a Christian or wasn't a Christian, it wouldn't impact how I lived very much. And so that happened a couple of times at different camps. But then actually my senior year, my high school soccer team actually did very well, and we went on a run in the state tournament. And during that run, the very first game, we played the first half, and then lightning came and it got canceled for that day, and so we played the second half the next day actually. And on the bus ride to the game, I was just praying to God and being like, you know what, God, I really want to win. If you help us win, then I'll give you 30 minutes tonight. Which I don't do that anymore. I've grown a bit since then, but that was where I was at that point. And I mean, we were down in overtime 1-0, in overtime after being 0-0 the whole game. And when they scored on us, I was like, all right, that's it. It's over. But I was just like hopeful, like, God, please, like if you're there kind of thing. And then like 5 minutes later, I end up scoring a tie and we win in PKs. And so that night, I'm like, fair enough, you did it, God. Like, I'll give you 30 minutes and just like pray. And from that point, I realized like, man, I was only gonna do that if God allowed me to win. Like, that doesn't seem right. So from that point on, like every night I was like, all right, I'm gonna pray every night now. And just like games after that, every game, there pretty much got to a point where I was tired and hurting and I'm ready to give up in a way. I'd be like, all right, let's just get to halftime, or let's just get to the end of the game, we'll go to overtime. Those kinds of thoughts. And it was at those points where I gave up and stopped relying on my own strength that God would just like help me and help our team and we'd score a goal. And like thinking on it, I was like, that definitely wasn't me. I wasn't doing that. I'm not that good at free kicks, and I'm scoring free kicks now. And like, I didn't have energy, but I still managed to make that run to score. And I just like, me and our team in general just started going so much closer to God. And that was where I actually felt like God was active in my life. And so it felt like he cared about what was going on and wanted to help me and be there for me. So that had a huge impact on my faith. And that's where I really started to try and grow my relationship with God and live in a different way. But I wasn't ready to give him everything yet. And I would say that I committed at Michigan State, and I mean, Michigan State's a big party school, and I honestly didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know if I was just going to go and stop going to church, stop with anything in terms of Christianity and just play soccer, go party and do whatever. Like I actually wasn't sure. I wasn't committed one way or the other. But in the summer, before school even started, I got connected with Athletes in Action. And that was just huge for me, meeting other athletes who are also Christian and staff that wanted to walk with me and help me grow in my faith. And then through Athletes in Action, I got involved with Salt, and Salt is that's how I met Jaden, and just another group of guys who, even though they're at Michigan State, wanted to live their life in a way that honored God. And with all that, like fall of my freshman year is when I just fully decided, you know what, like I'm just going to give everything. I'm going to try and use my sport. I'm going to try and use my life, how I interact with girls, my friends, family. Like I'm just going to try and give it all and commit it all to God and live for him. Yeah.
Dude, I got to say this from the bottom of my heart. That was the most thorough answer I could have expected. And I love it. I love every second of it. Yeah. Talk to me about the moment that it seemed to change, which was that state championship game, right? Where it kind of you saw what the interaction was of God in your life. Yeah. Now that you look back on it, do you ever wonder what quite happened there? Or like how does that look for you kind of recounting where you've come from? And the reason I ask that is like, I'm somebody who's super reflective too, and thinking about where I've done or where I've come from. You know, I think that that's a tremendous barometer for understanding where we're going, is knowing where you were at. And so I just wonder is like, how reflective are you? And do you, consider what happened as a, kind of a baseline for where you're going today?
Yeah, I would say especially when like, if I share my testimony or talk to somebody about how I came to be a Christian, every time I think about it, I realize more and more the things that God did for me to be impacted in that way, and for me, like the things that he did in my life for us to win. But the biggest thing, like everything that happened was for me to have the relationship that I have now. I feel like everything that really happened, I mean, the goal wasn't for me to win the championship. That's not what God had in mind. Is like, yeah, I want to have Jonathan win. It was like, if this is going to be something that's going to bring Jonathan to me. And so now I'm in a point where I don't necessarily need, obviously I want to win every game I play in, but that's not something I need now. I'm going to be praying to God whether I win or lose. I'm going to be a Christian. I'm going to give my life to God either way. But yeah, there's like almost every goal I look back on, I'm like, if I have a couple of videos of the goals that I scored, and if I watch, I'm like, I could try and do that now, and I'd like to think I'm a better soccer player now than I was in high school.
Sure.
Like, I don't know if I could do that if I had 10 tries. And I only had one shot, and I was able to score it in high school. It's like, that's not because of me. And even more, that fall, I was planning on playing club soccer. With how soccer works, if you play for an academy, you play for the academy and not for your high school. So most of the guys at Michigan State didn't play for their high school. Some did. I'm one of the lucky ones maybe that did. I had chosen, I was really struggling with it in the summer, and I'd chosen to play for my club team. But then like my coach came and he's like, man, this is my high school coach. And it's like, this is so weird that all of a sudden you just can't play with us anymore, because I had my first 3 years of high school. And so he had looked into it and found a way for me to do both. That was maybe a loophole where I'd play for my high school, then play for my club team, then come back and play in districts after missing the second half of the season, and then I'd go back to playing club. And that was the plan, and that's what I was doing. So I played the first couple of games at Potter's House, my high school. And then for my club team, we had a friendly scrimmage that I wasn't supposed to be playing with them yet. And I told my club coach that, but he was like, there's no, like, it's not a real game. It's just a scrimmage. Like, it doesn't count for anything. And I was like, yeah, it's true. And what I really thought was like, who would know about this? Like, we don't have fans. We're just like some club team. Nobody's coming to our games or anything. But so I ended up playing in that when technically I wasn't supposed to. Maybe it wasn't a game, but still a scrimmage. So I kept playing with Potter's House, didn't think anything of it. And like a couple weeks later, one of the other teams that we had just beaten, and then they reached out to MHSAA and said, hey, Jonathan Stout played in this game with Midwest United on this day against this team, and he's not supposed to, so like do something about it almost. And because of that, MHSAA said the rule was I could only go from Potter's House to Midwest to Potter's House. I could only do that one time. And so I was planning on doing that, a big chunk of Potter's House, big chunk of Midwest, and then Potter's House. But I had already played the game and then come back and played more for Potter's House. And so MHSAA said, all right, that was your jump. You can't do that again. And so I had to make a choice again whether I was going to play the rest of the season for my club team or the rest of my season for my high school team. And I had previously chosen to play for my club team, but just because a school that we played tattled on me, and told MHSAA, made me choose again. And this time I was in a point where I chose to play high school instead of club. And it's like, and even to get to the point where like, well, maybe like you chose wrong and then God had to do something to make you come back. But I mean, in the whole summer, the team thought I wasn't going to play with them. And so they're playing with the perspective, all right, we're not going to have Jonathan with us. And they played a couple games thinking, all right, we're not going to have Jonathan with us. And then finally, oh, we do have him. And I think even the fact that I originally chose to play for my club team, like, impacted some of the other guys in ways that just allowed it all to work out perfectly, when it's like, that wasn't at all according to my plan. That's not what I was thinking I was going to do. But God just had it all worked out perfectly. And yeah, that's how, like, every time I look back, it's like, wow, that wasn't me. That was just so perfect that it only could have been God.
Now, dude, I have to say, I'm blown away by this story. And the reason is because one thing I noticed about you immediately as soon as I started watching games is, man, you have an energy and a just sheer will to compete that I would say is unlike anything I've seen. Honest, like being completely honest, on a soccer field in my life. And I love watching it. And we talk about making the jumps, right, as you were, and trying to compete with this team and that team. You know, stretching yourself thin to ensure that they are, you know, in a good place. And then we talk about something like drawing a penalty, which you have been known to do. And it makes a difference, right? And like, I just wonder, where does that, you know, enthusiasm and infectious energy and want to make people better, you know, and put them in great situations, where does that come from? Because it certainly jumps out about you.
Yeah. I would say the easiest part about it first comes from I just love people. Like, I love being around people, dapping people up, saying what's up, like talking, and so that's what makes it almost easy. But like the biggest thing, I mean, I don't know, when I play soccer, especially when I think of like, all right, if I want to use my sport and give it to God, all right, what does that look like? What does that mean? Does that just mean every time I score, I'm going to point at God? How does that actually work for me to try and do that? And one of the things that I concluded with is like, if I'm going to do this for God, then I'm going to try and be as joyful about it as possible. I'm going to try and enjoy every moment that God gives me to play soccer. Like, it's awesome. Like, I should be having fun with it. And then the second part is like, well, let's try and make it as fun for the guy next to me as well, and like my teammates, and just like, in some ways, I'm in a unique position where I can reach my teammates where, I don't know, like random pastors and whoever else isn't going to be able to reach them and tell them about Jesus. And one way I can do that is like, if I'm just bringing energy and having fun and like enjoying it, and then the next guy is starting to see soccer, it's like, man, I got to go to practice today again. Like, just can't the season be over already? Like, and that it maybe is crazy, but there's a lot of guys on our team that like are getting to a point where it's just a job. It's not as fun as it used to be. And so that was something I really thought of, is like, if I can be somebody that's just having fun and they see that, they're gonna be like, I want to have fun. I want to enjoy this how I used to as well. I want to have fun the way that I used to as well. And so, yeah, I would say that energy is something that, one, I'm just trying to enjoy it because I'm giving it to God, and like He's blessed me with so much, with the talent, the opportunities. Like, I never thought I'd be playing at Michigan State, and here I am. And like, so I've got so much to be joyful about, and so I'm just gonna give people high fives whenever I can. I'm gonna just yell and hype somebody up whenever I can. I'm gonna encourage guys whenever I can, and like, obviously in the game I'm gonna be mad in moments if I mess up, but like, I'm gonna be able to bounce back so much faster, and I'm gonna be able to think about the next play so much easier when I'm thinking like, I'm just having fun here. It's not necessarily about how well I perform. It's not even about winning the game. When I'm trying to enjoy it and glorify God, like He gave me a gift, I'm gonna enjoy using it and playing with it. And yeah, so I would say like I do make a conscious effort to have energy and to be joyful while I play. And yeah, it comes from wanting to give it to God and enjoy it. And then it's made a bit easier. I just like people and like hanging out with people and doing stuff with people. So I'm going to try and help them enjoy it as well.
You know, this is a moment where I will kind of toot my man's own horn a little bit from one perspective. And it's just that you guys, as we noted at the beginning of the show, have experienced a higher level of success this year so far. And I wanted to go somewhere else about your individual success on the field. During time here, freshman of year for Michigan State, as well as all Big Ten freshman team, right? Do I have those correct?
Big Ten co-freshman.
Okay,
So
for sure. for sure. But, and by the way, here's a trivia question is, who was the other?
Cole Cruthers or something.
Okay, where was he from?
He was at Rutgers.
Okay, cool. I was curious if you know that. That's a good deal. That's a good deal. But what do you think about, have you seen during your 2 years a culture change within the program? And if so, I was wondering if you could kind of expand on that and tell me a little bit about what you're seeing, because I feel like after hearing your story, there's a little bit of a link in year 2. So I want to hear your perspective from the inside on that.
Yeah, I would say, one, for me coming as a freshman, I'm like, all right, these guys are so big and old and they're D1 vets and whatnot. And so I don't want to impose on anybody. I'm just going to try and come and work my tail off and earn stuff by just working hard, but definitely try to avoid stepping on anybody's toes or anything like that. But there was 2 main things. One, there was a very big culture of, we're going to go out and we're going to party. Drinking, smoking, doing all kinds of things. And that culture, and even as just as an athlete, obviously it's not too helpful in just biologically with the carbs and drinks and whatnot for your lungs.
Sure.
But if it's every once in a while, it's probably not going to have that big of an impact. But it was just to the extent where it's like, what are you really here for? Are you here because you want to just have fun and go out and do that? Or are you here because you're for school and to play soccer and do well on your team? And I think it just showed a bit how much people were really bought into trying to be a good soccer team. And so that was one part. And then another part is I was coming as a freshman. There were some 5th years on the team, and I feel like there was it wasn't bad, but there wasn't a fully connected, I wasn't necessarily super close with the 5th years. And I was I was probably closer with those guys than the other freshmen. And there just felt like a disconnect between the grades and just not a super close-knit group. Whereas this year, a lot of those older guys have gone, and the culture in terms of going out is it'll happen, but at the end of the day, we're still, we can have fun, but we're going to play soccer. We're going to, that's one of the main priorities. And then, so it's how seriously people are really taking it. And our team is so much closer. We don't, we only have one 5th year, and he's super cool guy. So he talks to everybody. And just in general, my class has been becoming more dominant as a class. And my class, I think, is very good in terms of just bringing energy and just, that different culture of buying into it more. And that's just but even the guys who are still here, upperclassmen, the freshmen and seniors are hanging out, talking to each other, having a good time. Everybody is close to everybody, and it's just people enjoy being around each other more, and that makes them if I like the guy next to me, I'm gonna want to do better and play better because I want the best for him as well, and he's working for me, and I want to work for him, and so everybody's just gonna be working harder, wanting the best for everybody, and so it just works out better. And I will say, it's just been super awesome with my class. There's another guy, Jake Spadafora, who is another firm believer, and one of our captains, Jack Zuge, actually is another firm believer. And we pray before games, and that circle is getting bigger and bigger, and more and more guys are just getting a little more curious about it, want to know a little bit more about it, and I think it's awesome what's going on our team.
Man, that's incredible. It's not very often you hear of a shift like that takes place, and especially on, as you said, such a secular campus. that has the amount, of indulgences that Michigan State does and has. So I'm really inspired by that. But I want to go somewhere else. Is talk to me about some of the role models that you had when you came in and kind of the impact that some guys made on you. And then talk a little bit more, if you can, about how you're close with your class and kind of, what it looks like for you guys when you're together off the field too.
Yeah. Role models. I think the first one that comes to mind is Caleb Sleeman. He's a guy on staff at AIA. And he was a guy that I was meeting with, talking to before school even started my freshman year. And so I was able to get close to him. And I mean, he played baseball at MSU, graduated probably 4 or 5 years ago or so. And I don't know, he's just got so much wisdom and has just shown me a ton about how I can be on my team and try and help minister to them and show them Jesus without, shoving it down their throat in any way, but just being there for them. And also I probably had it even better than he did in terms of other teammates who are also believers, whereas he said he went through some getting made fun of a bit at different times because of it. And so he just has, from being in a similar spot, he was able to take all things he learned and just kind of share it with me and talk to me about some of that and faith and sport. And so, yeah, he's been a huge role model for me the past 2 years at MSU. And then in my grade, so we got six of us now, 6 or 7.
That's a large class.
Yeah, pretty good sized class for sure. We had one guy leave, which was unfortunate. He's playing professionally in Canada now, which is pretty sweet. Wow. Yeah. But he was a really cool guy, but school wasn't for him. So he's playing there. But my roommate, Josh Mason, and another guy in my grade, Kyle Schooneman, are probably the two guys that I spend the most time with. And I mean, that could be anything, just going and juggling, playing soccer a little extra with them. We'll play tons of card games, board games. That's actually something this year that we've done more is I play a weird version of euchre where we play with 6 people. And I was able to teach that to a bunch of guys on our team. And so now every away trip we'll play almost every day for an hour or two, 6-handed euchre. Wow. And so that's been a ton of fun for me, just playing cards with my teammates. But yeah, other guys in our grade, Kyle, he cuts my hair. So he actually cut my hair 2 nights ago. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he does it for free, which is the reason why I have him cut it. There it is. But yeah, I mean, the guys in my grade are sweet. We have a transfer in my grade, Cristiano. He's another awesome guy and very good player as well, which I think also contributes a little bit to some of our success, that he's a very good player. But yeah, our grade, sweet.
Something that has, I feel, continued to be a point to what you've told me over the different questions and conversations is community building. And just having that love for expanding, how well you guys are known to each other. And that's something that I appreciate, and something that I think anybody out there who's looking at, building an organization or building a team should focus on, is that's a major pillar. One thing that I'm fascinated by, forgive me, but I took a little look-see at your Instagram page, just getting prepared for the show. And I saw that you made a post from what's called UTC, which my understanding is that's sort of a camp-based thing, and has to do with faith. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because that's something that I've only heard a little bit about, but I would love to know more. And I'm sure a lot of people out there are going, UTC, either, have been a part of that or are wondering more. So let's go there.
Yeah, so UTC is a camp, and it's through the Athletes in Action organization. So Athletes in Action is a national organization that sends, like, anybody who wants to can sign up and go pretty much. And so there were people from all universities, like there were NAIA, D2, D3, Division 1, like any type of university anywhere in the US. And they even started some internationally, but the one I was at was all athletes in the US. And so how it worked is we basically just, we go to the camp, and the goal of the camp is for us to really learn how to use our sport and like combine that with our faith. So, and that's kind of the goal of Athletes in Action in general, but the camp was specific on how can we combine sport and faith. And so in the first couple of days, they had 5 principles for us. We'll see if I can come up with them all. But the first one was audience of one, trying to figure out who you're worshiping with your sport. Because we're made for worship, and so we're going to worship something or somebody.
Sure.
And so either we can try and glorify ourselves and try and get our success and whatnot and try and make it all about us, or we can try and glorify God and have Him be our audience that we're trying to perform for. And so then it becomes not about all of the outcomes, because normal fans pretty much care about whether you scored, how well you're playing. But when you make God your audience, He cares a lot more about your effort, how you're treating your teammates, the other team, like just using, and even how you see your gifts and your own success and your own failures and how you respond to that. And so that's the first thing, is audience of one. Second one, I can't remember the name for it, but it's what motivates you.
Okay.
It's inside game, what motivates you. And so that's like more like, all right, are you playing your sport because you want to get accomplishments, you want to be recognized by other people, you want to, I don't know, get all this glory, maybe money, whatever it is? Or are you doing it because God gave you a gift and you want to honor Him and use that to the best of your ability? And seeing it that way, also like with like enjoying it, you enjoy it so much more when you're playing because you have a gift and you want to use it and you're just excited to use it, compared to the pressure that you put on yourself when you're thinking, I want to earn this, I want to do this. Now, if you play bad, you're not getting those goals, and you'll just spiral into like, it's not fun anymore. It's not what it used to be. So that's the second one, what motivates you. Third one was, I think it's how do you deal with suffering? And that's like a big one in sports, because like obviously one is injuries. If you get hurt, how are you going to deal with that? Is soccer your everything, that when soccer isn't going well, your life sucks, or your sport isn't going well, your life sucks? Or are you able to see suffering as one, something that God is over it and He knows what you're going through, and He's going to make it work out for the better. Like everything that happens, God is going to use, and He knows how it's affecting you, and He has a plan for it. And are you able to see that suffering in that light? And then also, however much this sucks, one is very, very small to the pain that Jesus went through when He died. And then two, all that pain that we go through now is going to be very, very small compared to the joy and the glory that's going to be in heaven. And so like, when you think about those two comparisons of my pain to Jesus' pain, and then my pain to the joy in heaven, like my pain isn't quite so much anymore. The fourth thing is like, how do you grow? How do you train? With your sport, you have to put time in, and you have to go to practice and work on it to get better. And the same thing with your relationship with God. Like, if you want to get better with your relationship, you need to like grow your relationship with God. You're going to have to spend time with them. You're going to have to spend time in the Word. You're going to have to spend time in prayer. You're going to have to spend time in community talking about God and your relationship with God. And so just like in sports, how you just need to spend time practicing in a way, the same way you get better with your relationship with God is going to be by spending time with Him. And then the last one is victory beyond the game. It's basically just like, what's really important? Are we playing? Is your sport, is that the ultimate victory? Is if win state, win nationals, whatever it is, win the Big Ten? Is that the ultimate goal? Well, probably not. Like I'm still gonna have a lot of years left to live when I'm done playing soccer, and so like, what is my ultimate goal? And so victory beyond the game is like giving my life to God, and then my victory is when ascending, getting called into heaven, and so kind of putting that into perspective as well. Is winning this game my ultimate victory? Oh well, not really. I'd love to win it, but it's not the ultimate thing. And that was something they brought up is big dub, little dub. And so what they said was big dub is worship when you're playing, and little dub is winning. And so when you're playing, I mean, it's awesome if you get the little dub. If you can win the game, like, shoot, that's sweet. But if you don't get that it's much smaller, much less important. It's the little one compared to whether you're worshiping God and whether you're serving God with your sport. So I thought that was really cool. So those are the 5 principles of UTC.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, still got them. They left an impact. So those were the teaching up part. But then halfway through the camp, they have the thing called the special. And like I had no idea about this going in. So I'm giving a bit of a spoiler here. But basically, it went from like Wednesday night to maybe Thursday afternoon to Friday afternoon. It was about 24 hours. And what it was almost constant competition. And it was designed so that we played, we did tug of war stuff, and then we played like handball, and there's just no break, and so they're trying to make you tired and fatigued, and the refs are always going to be iffy on different things. And then we played basketball, and then the hardest thing we did that night, we went swimming. And holy cow, like swimming sucks. Like I only had to go, it was a relay race that we were doing, and so it was 25 meters down and back, and I did that like 5 times. It doesn't sound bad at all. I didn't think it was going to be bad at all, and it was horrible. To be fair, I'm not the greatest swimmer, but it sucked. And so then by the time we got done, and then we even had a exam on the principles.
Wow.
And so that night afterwards, and we're also split into teams. So there were 20 teams. I was on team 19 that were all competing against each other for points as well. So they're keeping track of how many wins you're getting essentially throughout this competition. We get done at like probably 1:30, and then based on your points, how many points you had a relay race that first people had to go, I think, at 4:30 in the morning. So the people who were in last place got about 2 hours of sleep, I think. And then the people who were in first place got like 3 or 4 hours. The latest that you would go is at like 5:30 or 6, I think. And the relay race is another like really tough part of, we had 8 people in our group, and we just had to, it was like a 3 mile or maybe a 5 mile, I can't remember which, 3 mile or 5 mile course where the 8 of us have a board that everybody is like helping to carry, and then there's a tire, like a car tire hanging on the board. And so we have to run, and everybody has to be touching this board at all times. And then every so often there'll be a like we put it down and then we have to do run around somewhere, or we have to do push-ups or army crawl or this or that. And there were like 12 stations, I want to say, that you'd go a ways, do another exercise, and then you pick the board back up with the tire on it, and then you run to the next one, and that took about 2 hours straight, just like going with your board. And so like it was designed to make you tired, fatigued, and then there were a couple of competitions after that as well, and just make it so that at some point you're going to be frustrated with yourself, because we're playing all kinds of different sports. Wiffle ball was probably the worst for me that we played. I was horrible at it. So I'm like, why am I so bad at this? Like, how can I, like, I don't know. It's frustrating. And then there's also, well, if I'm playing a sport where somebody else on my team isn't that good at it, how am I able to, like, why are you not as good as I want you to be?
I see.
And so I'm getting frustrated at them. I'm getting frustrated at refs who aren't making the right calls. And the whole time, now I'm on like 3 hours of sleep. I've been playing these games for 15 hours now, like, and so I just sat in a classroom essentially learning these principles, and now, all right, how am I gonna actually use them? Am I gonna be able to do it when I'm actually put in the position where I need to use them?
Sure.
And so that was definitely hard. It was a tough experience, but also like it has in a way like prepared me for when I'm going to be in a game and I'm frustrated with somebody else. I'm frustrated with myself. I'm frustrated at the ref. And how am I able to see, all right, victory beyond the game? How am I going to deal with suffering? Why am I really playing right now? Who am I worshiping while I'm playing right now? And really like keeping those things in mind when I've got all these things going around and I'm mad about this and that and everything going on, but being able to bring it back and be like, all right, I'm focused. I know why I'm playing. I know who I'm playing for. And I know what really matters in this game. And so that UTC is called Ultimate Training Camp. That's what UTC stands for.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, so that's what it's all about, is like learning about those 5 principles and then putting you through something that hopefully you're able to actually apply those principles to.
Man, that's an incredible experience. I mean, I can't comprehend how grueling that would be, and just how you'd have to go to the depth of mind, body, and spirit in order to accomplish that. You know, I wanted to ask you one thing, and actually I'm going to reference this sheet here, so forgive me, folks, but I need to get this right. I've seen this quote associated with you before, that's the horse is made ready for the day of battle, but victory belongs to the Lord. I was thinking about that quote for the entirety of your story that you just shared about the camp. And the reason was because I feel like it's associated with, you know, competing and with getting ready to, and like putting on the armor of God, right? And preparing to handle anything that comes your way. Be able to break down suffering and convert it into that, you know, infectious energy we talked about earlier. I was wondering, can you talk to me about that quote and what that means to you, and also where that comes from?
Yeah, so that's a verse in Proverbs, actually. I should know. It might be like Proverbs 21:31, okay, but that might not be it at all. But I know it's in Proverbs. And yeah, I read it one time and I was like, at first it didn't fully make sense to me, but I think I went and read a commentary about it, and it's like the horse is made ready for battle, but victory belongs to the Lord. So the horse, I'm the horse, and like some people might say, well, if winning is all about God, then why study for your test? Why would I even practice for my game if it's all about what God can do anyway? Then what's the point? And so I feel like this gets into the horse is made ready for battle. I'm still going to be ready to fight and be in that battle. But at the end of the day, so I'm still going to study, I'm still going to practice, I'm going to train. But at the end of the day, I'm also going to recognize that victory it's not in my hands. It's in God's hands. And so I'm still going to train my hardest. I'm going to study my hardest. I'm going to do all these things to help in that situation. But at the same time, recognize and understand that no matter how hard I work, I don't have full control on the outcome. No matter how hard I try, I can't win every game that I play in. And so it's that recognition of, I'm not just going to sit back, do whatever, and all right, God, take it from here. Like, do your thing, help me out. I'm going to work, I'm going to do what I can, but I'm also going to recognize, God, even I'm doing the best that I can, but I know that you're in control, and it's going to be up to you what happens. The outcome is in your control and not mine. So,
man,
yeah.
Thank you for breaking that down for me. I feel like that's, super applicable, to everything that we've talked about. And I was just reminded actually of a quote from Clemson's head football coach, Dabo Sweeney, who also is devout Christian and has certainly devoted his program and energy within the program to teachings, about the Bible and about who Jesus is. But one thing that he has said is, I'm going to do what I can when I can, so that when I cannot, I will not wish that I would have when I could have, right? Oof. And that's a tongue twister, right?
Yeah.
That kind of trips us up. But when I hear that, I think about having courage, right? And I think about living in such a way so that when you complete your race that you're running, right? Because we're all running our individual race, doing things that are to glorify God. But after you complete each step, right, and you level up, so to say, in a worldly sense, you improve, you get better, you move on, you don't live with regret, right? You can understand that you put in the work and you made it a tremendous impact to be able to glorify Him. Yeah. And so when I was listening to you say that right then, I certainly thought about that very quote. I want to go, though, somewhere else. Is, in the current day with collegiate... Oh, geez, I'm trying to untie this here. With the current day of collegiate athletics, right, with the whole concept behind NIL and, working for dollars, right, and working for platform and clicks, so to say. Have you done anything within the NIL sphere?
So now technically, yes. And I didn't do anything, but it was somebody on the women's soccer team. I don't know how exactly it worked out, but now Auntie Anne's has an NIL with the women's soccer team and our soccer team. So for me, what that means is I get to go in and get free pretzels whenever, and I'll post them on my Instagram story. Sure. Just like that, get a little cup of those pretzel nuggets with the cinnamon and sugar and stuff on it. It's great. So I, no money, but just like that's the only NIL that I got that, or we got as a team 2 weeks ago, I want to say.
Okay, sure.
But I would say for men's soccer and where almost the publicity is at for us, a lot guys that try, I don't really go looking for NILs. If I did, and some guys who do, you can get maybe free socks, you can get maybe free drinks somewhere, like Bubbler, I don't know, an energy drink. I know 2 of my teammates just got a NIL with Insomnia Cookies.
Oh, wow.
Where they get, I think they said, $250 worth of cookies for a semester.
Okay.
So it's that's pretty cool, but
sure.
So, and that's probably the closest one to getting actual money from our team. But one thing, I'm not sure exactly why it is. I feel like girls have an easier time getting NIL deals. So the women's soccer team, they have there's a couple more that they have as a team, but also individuals that ask for them have an easier time I think, for whatever reason,
I see.
to get NIL deals. But I know gymnastics and women's soccer have this NIL from, it's a charitable gift donation or something, where they get like $5,000 and then they donate like $5,000 for the year, and they donate like $500 or so to some organization, charity organization, and they keep the other $4,500.
Okay.
And then they'll do like an Instagram post about it, and that's the deal. One of my teammates is working on trying to get that for us. That'd be pretty sweet.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm not even completely sure. I think that they reached out to the gymnastics team and the soccer team and said like, hey, we want to do this with you guys. And so they didn't even have to like ask or work something out with them. That organization reached out to them, which is pretty nice. The other thing that I do have though is there is a name for it, but it's not an NIL, but all MSU athletes got like $5,890 or maybe $5,983 this past year. And that had to do with the court case of like student athletes aren't able to get jobs, so we should be compensated in a different way.
Oh, okay.
And so that we get $6,000 essentially for a year, and that's up to the university if they want to do it.
Sure.
So I know some give only like $4,000, and I think that some probably don't give any. But Michigan State is nice enough that they're giving $6,000 to all their athletes, which is pretty sweet for me and the other athletes.
Sure.
But yeah, that's pretty much the extent of my experience with NIL.
Absolutely. And, I appreciate you kind of, going out and sharing with what some of the opportunities are that you're working on. But I'm curious, is like, given your stance, and I shouldn't even say stance, but perspective as a Christian athlete, do you think that it's something that people who are also Christian athletes can pursue from a kind of meaningful purpose? Or have you kind of looked at it as, well, more people are thinking just about dollars? What is your perspective with that?
I would say certainly I don't see any problem with other Christian athletes like looking or pursuing NILs. I mean, I'm honestly mostly just too lazy to reach out to different people and try and get NIL deals with different organizations. But for someone who is looking to do it, like, more power to you. Like, if you can get a NIL deal, like, that's awesome. And with it being more meaningful, I think that if you can like figure out an organization that will sponsor you, and maybe it's a Christian organization or something, I mean, that'd be sweet. I probably don't know enough about how NIL really works and all that to say, like, you should do this or that or do it in this way to make it the best. But my initial thought would just be like, dude, if you can get a NIL and just do an Instagram post or two about their product and then get some money or get free merch for something, like, go ahead.
Sure. Absolutely. That makes a whole lot of sense. And I really appreciate actually both you and Julia with the answers you've given when I've asked that question, because that's something I really want to get to the bottom of, is like, okay, the way we look at it, right, and the way that kind of I would say the world looks at it is like, you're furthering your platform, right? But it's an interesting kind of dilemma for somebody who comes from a faith background or is trying to grow. Because as you further your own agenda, platform, perception in the public, then you may lose sight, right, of who you're truly trying to work for. And so I've been curious about that, and I really appreciate where you're coming from with that. Let me ask you something. So you're studying statistics, right? Okay. And I was wondering, is like, where are you looking to go when statistics degree is done, when soccer is on its way out? Where are you headed?
I I mean, once I'm done with my degree, whatnot, currently the goal would be to play professionally soccer, but obviously that's only going to go so far long. I can only play for so long. What I have thought is that if I did manage that, I would probably end up coaching.
Okay.
I think that there's a decent chance that I would coach. My problem with it is I don't want to deal with being the bad guy and determining who gets minutes and who doesn't, and maybe how much scholarship, if I was a college coach, is how much scholarship each kid gets. So my ideal spot would probably be to be an assistant coach somewhere if I were to coach.
Okay, sure.
That way I can maybe help kids develop as players and people, and just have that be pretty cool without having to deal with the part of you're going to play, you're not going to play, you're going to get this much money, you're going to get that much money. I would just have a bit of a hard time with that.
Okay.
If not, though, if I just graduate, done with soccer, I mean, I got my statistics degree. I mean, honestly, I don't even know how much like it would even look like to be a statistician somewhere, but I figure if I've got a stats degree, I'll figure it out. God will make something work out and just go from there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Man. Options,
Yeah,
right?
options,
That's the whole key, right?
Figure it out.
Let me ask you something, because once again, and I'm really intrigued by, and folks listening, if you made it through the end of the interview with Julia Bishop, and now if you've made it to this point here with Jonathan, one connection that I've been able to draw between you two is the yearning to be a coach. She said the same thing, actually, and I find that interesting. But I'll ask the same question I asked her, is if you were to get to that point where you were a coach or assistant coach, what is something that you would want to be an integral, like pillar or kind of teaching point for your guys?
Yeah, this is actually something I've thought about a bit, somewhat recently, and that's like in college, a big difference for me since high school has been the more it feels like a job, in that, and I mean, part of it makes sense. Our coaches, I mean, they're getting paid to get us to win games, and their job can even be in jeopardy if they're not getting us to win enough games. And so as coaches, we're here to win, and so we're going to practice to win. We're going to, everything we do as a team is with the goal of winning. Every game, the goal is very clear, it's to win, and that's the only goal. And obviously winning is great, it's awesome, it's fun. When you're in a game, the goal is to win, but maybe it's like, all right, how far, or even how, is that all that I care about? Is that all that matters to me during and after the game? Like, is it going to kill me if we lose? Is it going to be everything to me if I win? And so as a coach, I would try to implement a bit more of like, yes, we're trying to win, but like we're here to have fun and enjoy. Like, everybody playing Division I soccer are like great athletes and very skilled players, and like it's just people, we should be able to enjoy and just appreciate that skill and gift that we've been given, instead of being so focused on we have to win, and if we don't win, we're failing. And that perspective, it's just like makes it a job, and it's, your enjoyment is purely based on whether you win or lose, and it leads to people slowly falling out of love with soccer. And like, it's all, a ton of guys on my team are starting to feel some of that, of like, man, is this all that it's about, is winning? And yeah, like I said, I mean, winning's great, but at the end of the day, it's not gonna, every game you win, even if as a Christian, if I pray to win this game, we won, sweet. Well, I'm gonna be praying to win the next game as well. If we win that game, I'm still gonna be praying for the next game as well. It's a never-ending cycle of, I'm always asking for more, and I want to win more, than if I'm just like, dude, I'm playing soccer. I'm having a great time, you know? So that would be a big thing I try to implement as a coach, is to enjoy it, work hard, try and win. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're a Division I athlete. Like, this is awesome. You should be like enjoying this.
Sure.
Yeah.
What oh man, that leaves so much unanswered, dude. I love it. Let me ask you something. Oh wow, where was I going with that? Oh, I wish you could have said that same thing over again.
No worries. That was something I got from Caleb Sleeman a bit, because it was like, in high school, I mean, I had that relationship with God. I prayed, God, like, help us win this game. I'm growing my relationship, and then we won. And I prayed again, and we won. And I prayed again, and we won. And that tournament run ended with us winning the state championship. And so this past year, playing for Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament, I was praying a lot, and I'm ready, like, feeling confident, like, God, I've been praying, and like, you're gonna come through and help us win this game. And during the game, we actually played Ohio State, first round of Big Ten tournament. I'm praying, I'm feeling good about it. During the game, they keep getting chances to score, then they just barely miss, or our goalie make a great save. I'm like, God, thank you, like, you're helping us, like, thank you so much. And then they scored with 30 seconds left in the game to beat us 1-0. And it's just like, God, like, what happened? I thought this is how it worked, is that I prayed, and then you helped us win, and this isn't what's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to win when I'm praying this much to you. And I talked to Caleb Sleeman about it a couple days later, and kind of describing that to him and how I was feeling about that. And he was like, well, when you won state in high school, you got the win you were asking for. That's what you're praying for, is to win the game, and you got it. And then here you are, 1 year later, praying for the exact same thing. And like, you already received that, and now you're asking for it again already. And if I had won that game against Ohio State, I would have been praying for it the next game. And if we didn't win that game, I would have been just as disappointed. And it's like, I'm asking for this thing where I'm going to be asking for the exact same thing a week later, 2 weeks later. Like, I'm going to be asking for it again. Whereas if I'm viewing it as like, man, I'm just serving God in all of this, and I'm just praying that I can worship God in how I play, then I really don't have to be like asking for a win again and asking for a win again. I'm just like, God, help me to play for you. And I'm not always trying to get more and get more and get more and asking for something, receiving it, and not being satisfied. I'm just like, after games, being like, thank you for allowing me to play. And win or lose, and obviously it's nicer to win, but when you see it that way, instead of just win, 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 it helps me enjoy it more. And now I'm satisfied, I'm content, instead of winning something and then still wanting more, and not fully being satisfied, which I think that was like just really huge for me to have that. Yeah.
You know, I'm so glad you just said what you said. And this has happened many a time. I'm sure all of you out there have heard me say that over the last 2 interviews. But it's because I feel like, man, there's a reason that you say what you say at the time you say it.
Yeah.
And I just so appreciate the meticulous kind of nature of breaking these things down for me, and for listeners out there trying to dissect all these messages. What I was trying to ask before I went into complete oblivion, which you just reminded me, so thank you, is before you asked for anything, right? Before you knew God, before you fully internalized all these perspectives about moving on, playing for something higher, having this, kind of above the rim, infectious joy, how did you identify that soccer was a gift? And where did that come from? And also, to go off of that, what are some of the other gifts that you feel you possess that you look to expand upon going forward?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that I didn't fully see soccer as a gift, um, and something where I can use it to honor God. Probably until last fall, playing with Michigan State, first season, freshman season. That was where, with AA, SALT, some of those things, and my faith growing to the point that it was at, fully realizing, wow, like God gave me this whole time. It hasn't just been me doing my own thing. It's been me using God's gifts to play here and play there and do this and do that. And so for the longest time, I only played soccer because I enjoyed playing it. Like I didn't really do additional trainings because I wanted to get better at playing soccer. If I played soccer with my friends, it was purely because it was for fun. I wasn't necessarily doing it to be the best soccer player, just for the enjoyment of it. But then once I did, and that wasn't a bad thing necessarily, I started trying to do extra trainings to actually become a better soccer player. But that eventually led to me seeing it as a job and seeing like I'm only doing this to get better and not because I'm enjoying it. And it was that point that I started to enjoy it less. But then with AA and some of those like teachings, those principles, thinking like, wait a minute, like I can train to get better and I can play soccer, but at the end of the day, like this, I'm not doing it purely like out of my own abilities. Like that was given to me. And so by me trying to give it to God, that's really me just giving it back what's already his. Like he gave it to me, and so all I'm really doing is trying to give some of it back, instead of just like taking it and trying to use it all for myself. So yeah, I forget what your other question was though. What was the second part?
Oh, what was the second part? Well, you know what? Let's go somewhere else though. Let's scrap
Fair
that.
enough.
And let me ask you one more thing. I know that you got to go, and I know that there are things
worries.
on the way with practice, with meetings, with games, all that stuff. But I'm so curious. Is like, what is the next step of faith? Because we talk about it, right? As Christians and as people who follow God. To the end of the earth, right? The constant pursuit, understanding that there's always a next step in the journey to take. I'm wondering for you, what does that look like? Because to me, it sounds like you've come a long way. Yeah. You've done a lot of things. You've had tremendous experience, grown in community, grown in faith, grown as a player. Where are you headed next in your faith journey? What is that next tangible step you would like to take?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me would be just some more boldness almost. It's like at this point, I have my faith and super solid faith. And when somebody is looking to talk to me about my faith, like, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about it. But it's like those conversations that I might have to start and putting it into, where I'm maybe pushing it a little bit more of like, tell me about your faith, and trying to help others grow without only like allowing people to come to me, but me start to, I don't want to just shove it down people's throats and make them like almost not want to talk to me about faith or about anything in general, because they're like, he's just gonna shove Jesus down my throat if I talk to him. But like still make sure that I'm honoring God and recognizing that it would be awesome to find opportunities, essentially looking for opportunities to mention the gospel, to share the gospel. And that doesn't have to be pushing it on anybody, but just like almost informing them, like, this is what Jesus did, and this is what it looks like to be a Christian, and this is how it's impacted me in my life. And just being willing to really come alongside and share with people and being a bit more bold using my story and what I've come to learn and know, and just coming alongside other people and helping them in their journey of faith. So I think that's definitely the next step for me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your willingness to share all this with me and with everybody out there. And I so appreciate being able to sit here and break down all these things with you. And, I guess lastly, I would ask, is there anybody you want to mention? Any, last thoughts you have before we exit out here?
Oh, I mean, shout out mom and dad. Like, yeah, they've had a huge impact on me, obviously. I've been noticing more and more how much more I'm like my dad, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, they've helped me as a soccer player, just like driving me to practice, stuff like that, and also as a Christian. And they're just great parents. So I feel like gotta shout out mom and dad. Otherwise, man, God's good. He'll take care of you. That's about all I got.
Amen, dude.
Amen.
Amen. Seriously, guys. I mean, boldness, courageousness, infectious and relentless pursuit of energy and community building. I want to let you know that you've gained a fan today. You really have. And I think that's, will be true amongst all these people, is just the impact you make. And I love it. And thank you again.
Hey, thank you. It's been awesome. It's fun.
Hey, I love it. And so glad we could have you. And, folks, that does it for Confluence of Worlds with Bryan Rector as well as Jonathan Stout. Just immense appreciation. And want to let you guys know that we're going to keep coming back with these shows. This is something that, I'm understanding now that I've been able to speak to many more athletes around Michigan State, that there is space for this, right? And 100%. It's essential to talk about, and it's tremendously important to uncover the root of why we do what we do and how that kind of manifests on a daily basis. So I hope you guys got, tremendous nuggets and wisdom out of this show too. It's been amazing and enlightening for even me to be sitting here listening to, and I hope you guys have a great day. But thank you.
Thank you.
Man, that was unbelievable.
That was sweet, dude.